Okay, today on the show, we have a couple of movies you might not have ever heard of. First is 2022's Fresh, and then we have 2019's Plus One. Both are available on Hulu. All right, everyone. Welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews. I am your host, Brandon Griffiths. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Today on the show, I mentioned we've got some movies that I actually happened to just stumble upon and decide to watch, and I figured they were worth doing an episode over. So we'll get to those in a minute, but, of course, I got these warm-up topics that I like to do. So, first things first, I had my Thor Love and Thunder episode, and it was an underwhelming movie. I wasn't a big fan of it. I could have done without going to see it in theaters, to be completely frank, because I also heard shortly after it came out that it was supposed to be on Disney Plus in like 3 weeks. So it was a big letdown. I mean, I hadn't liked the Thor Ragnarok movie either, which a lot of people really liked, but I'm hearing more and more people tell me that they felt the same way I did about Thor Love and Thunder. And I've noticed that that's kind of a problem with the Marvel movies. There are a lot of recent ones that have come out that have been underwhelming and not anything special. And they're starting to lean more on the humor. And I guess what I hate most about the humor thing is that it's the type of humor it is. It's jokes that only get made in action movies as comic relief. They're not really funny moments or anything. So it ends up being kind of shitty. You know what I mean? I don't really care for that style of humor, and to have it, because they use it so much more than the average action movie uses it to do comic relief, I get tired of it. But, Doctor Strange, that was a disappointment. The Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange. And I think the biggest problem with that one was it was hyped up to be this huge crossover movie. We thought that it was going to mean that, they were going to bring all of these 20th Century Fox owned characters into the fold, and they just didn't really. They did some of that, but it was not as grandiose as they might have led you to believe by the promotions for the movie. And I think that they planted a lot of that stuff, and I also think that they cut a lot of that stuff out of the final cut of the movie. So I wasn't a big fan of that. I definitely liked it better than Thor Love and Thunder. And I've gotten to where I'm a little less apprehensive to share with people that I'm not a fan of some of these movies, because they're just not that good. You know what I mean? And it's like when I came out of Thor Love and Thunder, I was very confident in saying I didn't like it, but with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I went and saw that with multiple people, and I basically just said straight up, I was like, yeah, I didn't really like that. I didn't really think that was very good. Like, the hard thing is it was not a bad movie. It was just, it didn't deliver on what the expectations were, and I don't think it would have taken that much more to close that gap, but they didn't do that, so that's kind of what we ended up getting. So I was starting to notice this in the Marvel movies before Endgame even hit. So it was already starting to be a problem, and they just kind of left it, they're continuing on the same course, and I don't think Disney is quite realizing that these movies are not up to snuff. It's a crying shame, because they've been so successful for so long, and they've done such a good job with them, that it's like, for them to just all of a sudden, now that they're like not recognizing that, like, hey, this isn't what we want in a movie, I just don't know. I don't know what to think of it. So I have a couple of weddings to go to this summer or this fall. Yeah, I think it's this fall, really. First one is my stepsister's. And so, I have very little involvement with that wedding. I'm just going to be going to the actual, probably the ceremony and the reception. The only thing you could ask for that would be more ideal in a wedding is if you don't even have to go to the ceremony and you just go to the reception and say congratulations and you stay for the amount of time you want to and then you leave. But with this one, I am going, it's somewhere like northeast of Fenton. I can never remember. I want to say maybe it was like Oxford, Michigan or something. And I ended up having to reserve a hotel for that night because it's far enough away and I kind of want to drink, I'd like to, get a little rambunctious or whatever. And if I don't get a hotel, I'm going to regret it. So I figured I might as well just do it right now and be done with it. So I have that one. And then I have my friend's sister's wedding in October. And her wedding, I'm going to like a couple's shower, which I guess I didn't realize this was a thing now, but it's a couple's shower and it's right in Grand Ledge where I live, and it is it'll be just like a little afternoon evening type thing where I go there, I bring a present, whatever, and I just go, you know what I mean? But the thing is then for their actual wedding, it's in Ludington in October, and I assume I'll probably like work out like getting a hotel room or whatever. I don't know how that's going to work. I probably should be working on that right now, but it's so difficult like trying to figure out like, okay, so this is where the wedding is going to be. This is an acceptable hotel room to stay in, blah, 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 blah. It's getting me a little unnerved, honestly. It worries me having to make plans like this. And, I have to, for the other wedding that I'm getting a hotel for, I have to call that hotel and confirm the reservation because I already called and did the reservation. It's just, I'm that anxious about stuff. I have to confirm those kinds of things because otherwise it'll freak me the fuck out. I'm excited for those weddings though. I'm excited to go to them. The only thing that I think would make them a little better is, if I actually knew more people that were going to be at them, if there were more mutual friends. And that's the only hang up I have is it'd be nice to know more people, but I'm still excited. It could be fun. I don't even know if I'm allowed a +1, but I don't think I would be able to cash in on that anyway because of who I am as a person. And that brings me to my next topic, which I've been rewatching the show Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. And, if you've never seen the show, the basic premise is Jerry Seinfeld will get this rare older vehicle and he will come and pick somebody, like a celebrity up, and they'll go to get coffee together and they'll just, talk about whatever comes up and whatever they feel like. And he was doing this episode with Steve Martin, who is, one of the all-time comedy greats. I fucking love Steve Martin. He's such a great guy. If you ever get a chance, go to YouTube and search Steve Martin, Tom Hanks Lifetime Achievement Award, or what, probably just Steve Martin, Tom Hanks, and watch him do the speech before presenting Tom Hanks with the award for, Lifetime Achievement. And it is some of the best comedy. It's just hysterical, and Steve Martin is perfect at it. I fucking love him. And so the episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, Steve Martin was talking about how, he used to have trouble getting up on stage and doing that stuff, and then, somebody gave him the old standby fucking advice of, hey, if you just pretend to be confident, you'll get there, right? And Jerry Seinfeld, I had never liked Jerry Seinfeld more, and I love Jerry Seinfeld, but I had never liked him more than when he said, but pretending to have confidence and having confidence, there is no difference. If you can pretend to be confident, you are confident. That's how that works, And I'm like, yes, Jerry Seinfeld, thank you very fucking much, I guess I should probably get to these movies. First up is a movie called Fresh, which came out in 2022 on March 4th, to be exact. It was billed as a comedy horror film, but it wasn't ever terribly funny. I'll just say that up front. I guess it was a little funny in the beginning of the movie, but for the most part, I would not call this a comedy horror movie. So if you go into it expecting like laugh out loud hysterics or something, temper your expectations, okay? So the director of the movie is named Mimi Cave. She has no Wikipedia page. Enough said. Lauren Kahn wrote the movie. No Wikipedia page. Producer. Now this is one. All right. Producer Adam McKay. If you're not familiar, Adam McKay has been involved in such movies as Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, The Other Guys, The Campaign. As you can see, there is a Will Ferrell trend here. Anchorman 2, Get Hard, Don't Look Up, and he also produced Vice, and I mean he directed other movies that he didn't produce, but these are just movies he produced. But I loved The Big Short, and he was an executive producer, I think, and he was director on The Big Short, and I cannot recommend that movie enough, and I need to see the movie Vice. I've decided that I'm going to watch that if I can find it on streaming sometime. I'm definitely going to check it out. The composer for the score is named Alex Summers. No notable prior movies. Okay. So the star of this movie is Daisy Edgar Jones, and she plays the character Noah. And there are very few movies that she's in, or shows even. She was in a show called Normal People that I'm not familiar with. She was also in, or she's going to be in the movie Where the Crawdads Sing, which actually by the time I release this, it will have already come out. So she was in Where the Crawdads Sing. And she was in a show called Under the Banner of Heaven. And that's all I could really find that were like notable shows or movies for her. So, I mean, she's obviously not a huge name. Sebastian Stan is her co-star. He plays the character of Steve, and I should probably tell you right now, I'm probably going to have to spoil these movies today, so please just bear with me. If you want to see these movies, I'll tell you that I enjoyed both of them enough that I think you wouldn't be too disappointed if you watched them. They're both on Hulu. They're both really solid movies, but the way I'm going to talk about them, I'm going to have to fucking spoil, so, enough said. Sebastian Stan plays the character of Steve. You probably know him as Bucky Barnes / the Winter Soldier in the Marvel movies. He's in a bunch of Marvel movies. And I think he's pretty good. He doesn't have to do a whole lot of acting, I don't feel like, but other than that, I mean, he's pretty solid. He was also in, I think it's the show Pam and Tommy, which is on Hulu. It's about, Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee and their life or whatever. He's in a movie that I watched on Netflix. I don't know if it's a Netflix movie or not, but it's called The Devil All the Time. It has like Tom Holland in it and a couple other like notable actors, like good actors. And it was fucking like watching paint dry. It was so fucking slow. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't believe I didn't even finish the movie. It was that fucking slow. I never, like, I'll point out right now, I am not the kind of person that gives up on a movie very easily. If I'm bored with a movie, I will still press on and see if it's worth it. I usually won't give up on it too quick. He was in I, Tonya, which I love. I love I, Tonya. He was in Logan Lucky, which I forgot he was even in that movie. Honestly, couldn't even tell you who he played in that movie, but I love Logan Lucky also. And he was in a movie quite a long time ago called The Covenant, which was about male witches. And I know what you're thinking. Aren't those called like warlocks, or, if you're in the Harry Potter world, they're like wizards, Nope, they're just male witches on this movie. So it was basically like a fucking teen movie where it was just like all these, young, good-looking guys that were, it was appealing to a certain group of people, and that was it. It wasn't like it was targeting my demographic. So I can't really fault it for not being good to me, but, So someone named JoJo T. Gibbs is in this movie. She plays Molly, and she is not in any movies I've ever heard of in my life, and I have to, accept that that's kind of the way these movies are today, is they've got a lot of people, aside from Sebastian Stan, there's not much notable, stuff in their filmographies. So this is I'm trying to write a plot synopsis for all of these movies that I do now, and it's like, I understand that it's a struggle if you're a person who writes the plot synopsis. Like, it's not easy to just come up with something on the fly, and like I assume a lot of the people that write the synopsis have never seen the movie before, so it's even harder. But I said it was a woman with bad luck in modern dating meets someone randomly at a grocery store. And that was like when I was trying to be spoiler free. So it obviously, it's a horror movie, so it gets a lot more dark than that. But just to say like that's basically what I'm talking about, is like, it's the original, first act of this movie. It's about a woman who's struggling to find somebody in the dating world. And, that's the way it is. I mean, the first scene, she goes on a date with this guy, and he is just super douchey. He tells her before she comes that they only take cash at the restaurant, and that, basically he's implying that she needs to pay her own way. And I'm of two minds on the subject. Like, I think that, splitting the bill for a first date should not be that big of a deal. I think that should probably be the norm, but the guy goes about it in such a douchey way. And when she's talking to him, and like, she doesn't really like the food, and she's paying for it, and like, he makes a comment like, basically, oh, well, then I'll just take your leftovers. I've got my brother coming into town or whatever, and I'm just, I'll just leave a little extra for the tip, and you can leave a little less, and we'll call it even. That sound good? And so it's like, she leaves this date, and she's just like, the guy is still acting like he's got a chance with her, because like, people are that delusional, and I know that. But like, he goes for, like, he's about to go for a kiss, and she's like, and he's talking about like another date or whatever, and she's basically like, no, sorry, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to go on another date with you. It's just not, I don't feel a connection here or whatever. And it was a funny bit. Like, it was a funny couple of minutes to open the movie with, to see, so it was like, that's where they get the comedy from. Is to call it comedy horror, I guess, is, I think, a stretch, but whatever. It did feel, my experience with online dating especially has not been good, and I would say that for women, that it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, I think women have a lot more to choose from than guys do, but I think that, the average woman is probably having a worse experience with online dating, because it's such a creepy situation to be in. You know what I mean? It's like, you never know if you can trust the guys. Like, that's what I basically said in this movie, is it's just like, it would suck so bad. I mean, to be a woman at any time, it would be so unnerving, and I can't even fucking imagine what it's like. And it's like, I don't know how they go out in public, and how they go on dates with men they've never met in their life, and how they do any of that stuff. It's just bizarre to me. You know what I mean? Like, because they have so much to be concerned about. You know what I mean? So she goes, after this bad date she goes, and she's, at some point, I don't know how far down the road it is, but she goes to this grocery store, and she's like in the produce section, and Sebastian Stan is there as Steve, and she's Noah. It's Noah in the produce section, and Sebastian Stan starts like talking to her, and like, just kind of clearly trying to break the ice, and he's just being cool or whatever. And he gets her number, and then they it's weird to me because I've never seen Sebastian Stan. Like, I didn't watch the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, but like, I've never seen Sebastian Stan show this kind of range where he's like this charming, talkative guy where he can actually like pick up women. It's ridiculous, but like, so they're like chatting each other up, and like she clearly, like, they show that she's like pretty miserable with her dating life, and she just fucking hates it, and she just, wishes things could go a little better. And I'm like, I'm right there with you. I fucking get it. So she goes on the date with Steve, and Steve seems like he's a really good guy, and obviously, it's got to have a plot, so Steve can't really be all as good as he's cracked up to be. And he's just, they're chatting, and they end up like, getting physical. They end up kissing. She goes home with him. They have sex, all this shit. And like, she's, kind of like letting her guard down, and she thinks that Steve is, a good guy. And it's like, they basically, they start getting really close. And at some point, like, I was a little fuzzy on the timeline. Maybe I like missed something, but I couldn't tell how long they had really been together. And basically, I do want to mention something. Okay, so there's a quote that she says while she's on the date with Steve, and she says, "We put all our hopes in like finding happiness through someone else, and I just think that, like, I don't know, maybe it's not meant for me because I've been alone so long. I'm actually pretty good at it." And I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking accurate. But, she ends up going home with him and all that shit. And and they're planning a trip, they're planning to go away for the weekend. And, so it's like, it's already, you're starting, your scary radar is starting to go off. Like, this is, that this is not good, that she's going on this trip with him alone. And she hasn't known him that long. There's just a lot of red flags there, but she's doing it anyway. And she starts, he has to delay the, how long, like when they can go and all this stuff. There's just all this extra added, concerning things that are happening, and like, it's just, you really are starting to wonder what's up. And I really didn't, I knew not to like this delay in the departure of the trip. I didn't like it at all. I did notice at that point that she looks like somebody. She looks really familiar, and and I was like, I got to figure out what she's in. And so I looked to her IMDb page, and she wasn't really in anything that I knew. And then I looked at the, I looked at her, and I was like, okay, she looks like somebody, but I don't think she is that somebody. And I realized she kind of sort of resembles Rebecca Hall from The Town with Ben Affleck. And I liked that movie. It was pretty solid. And she just kind of vaguely resembled her. And I guess I decided that was enough for me to think that it might be her. And so, with every moment going, as soon as they leave on this trip, every moment that passes, Steve, Sebastian Stan, I'm sorry if I call him Bucky or whatever, he's getting creepier, and he's getting a little weirder, and things that he's saying just aren't adding up, She doesn't have, I remember thinking, like, she didn't have cell service, ruh-roh, like, it's, if they call attention to that it's gotta be a problem. But I kept marveling because this movie was taking some chances with their cinematography, and it was really cool to look at. It was a really well shot movie. It was certainly more interesting to watch. And I mean, the whole reason I watched this movie was because I saw this post by a movie page that I follow on Facebook, and they were talking about how there's all of these new horror movies out this year that are really popular. Like The Black Phone is one I want to see, but I've been hearing mixed things about it. But this movie was on that list, and that was what spurred me to watch it, because everybody was saying, oh, Black Phone's not that great, you should watch Fresh, Anyway, they get to whatever this, this cabin in the woods. He makes her a drink, and you're like, I mean, there's no way this drink isn't drugged. And sure enough, it's fucking drugged. And she, she's been drinking it, and all of a sudden she just kind of collapses. And it's at that point that the credits start. Like, the intro opening credits to this movie and the title card show up are 33 minutes into this fucking movie. I cannot fucking believe how long it took for it to happen. I had just assumed, because a lot of movies these days aren't doing opening credits. They're doing like an end credits, and then they're doing, second credits, another wave of credits to include with those. And so, it was like, it kind of, at this point I'm thinking, it's not like I'm liking the movie so far. It's got a little bit of predictability that I'm not loving, but it's also hard to be unpredictable in horror especially. And I mean, the only way, what I really was hoping was that I wouldn't have seen anything about this movie. I wish I wouldn't have known it was a horror movie. But you can only shelter yourself from so much information. And if you're me, you're trying to keep yourself in the dark about everything, but you can only do so much, like I said. I said that it was the longest pre-credits sequence in a movie I'd ever seen, and the 33 minutes, it was confirmed by IMDb, it was like super fucking long. I went to look up Adam McKay because I saw him in the credits, and I was giddy about it. And I just came across a picture of Jennifer Lawrence in the movie Don't Look Up, which is directed and produced by Adam McKay. And her hair in that movie is so terrible. It looks insane. I don't know where the fuck they thought of it. She says, I don't remember at what point, if it was before she gets drugged or right after. Oh, that's right. No, I think it's when so after he drugs her, she wakes up and she is chained to the floor in this little bedroom thing. She's got like a thing around her wrist that's keeping her chained to the floor. And she says, "What's going on, Steve?" And he says, I'm going to tell you, but you're going to freak out. And it's like, at this point, it's revealed in this movie. And I'm telling you, spoiler, he tells her that he has basically kidnapped her, and he is going to harvest her meat to sell on the black market. Okay? So, it's that level of fucked up, right? And so you're like, holy shit. I had that plot point spoiled for me because the poster that they chose to use on that Facebook post was, it was like one of those like styrofoam trays that's wrapped in cellophane that they, pack meat in grocery stores and stuff. It was like a human hand in that kind of like wrapped in cellophane in a styrofoam tray, and it said fresh on the label. And so that was how I knew already, like, oh, okay, so that's going to be what this movie's about. And it kind of pissed me off a little bit because it's like, don't fucking give that away. Like, you're clearly trying to keep people in the dark. Like, the way you're doing this storytelling in this movie, it's just aggravating to me. Like, don't fucking reveal that much shit with your movie poster. I get that you want it to be a clever, cool movie poster, which it was. And if I saw that after the fact, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's pretty fucking good. But now it's like, fuck, it spoiled that for me. You know what I mean? I knew that this movie was going to go south, and I knew it wasn't going to just be about her struggles with dating and things like that. She finds out pretty quickly that Noah does. She finds out that there's another girl there, and, he's obviously doing this to multiple women, and he's got like several rooms in this place that, he's taking them, and he is keeping their meat fresh, and, that's the whole title of the movie. And it's pretty interesting. But so it's like, I was thinking as I'm looking at him, so obviously people find Sebastian Stan good looking. I don't have any doubt about that in my mind, but like, he seemed creepy in this movie. And maybe it was me projecting that on him because I knew something that I shouldn't have known. But so this, okay, so from the very beginning of this movie, they have this friend of Noah's, and she's, they're always talking to each other. She calls her before dates or after dates or whatever. And this friend realizes something's up because, she's going, her friend Noah's going on this trip, and this friend's name is Molly, so that'll be a little easier for me to explain this. But Molly realizes that Noah is going on this trip with Steve. She doesn't trust the whole situation. And so once she realizes that she's not hearing back from Noah, she starts to investigate and try and find out where Noah went. And eventually she hears back from Noah, and she gets like a picture, and she searches for the picture on Google and finds out that, hey, this fucking picture is being used on a website, and this is not a picture that she took, And so she starts investigating, and she gets somehow, she figures out where Steve lives and goes and starts talking to the woman who is there, and she's basically, figured it the fuck out pretty fucking quickly, right? And she's been talking to this ex of hers that, she's keeping him in the loop on what's going on. And basically she tells the woman at Steve's house that she thinks that he's run away with this, Noah, and taken her somewhere and done something to her. And Steve ends up coming home while Molly is there, and she's asking him stuff, and she, they call him by another name, he's going by Steve to Noah, but this wife knows him as Brandon or Brendan or something like that. And it's just Molly is dead set on figuring out if this guy is up to something, And so she actually calls Noah's phone, and she finds, the phone starts ringing in Steve's bag. And so that's how she figures it out. But the wife is in on it, and they fucking take Molly and they fucking have her under, they take her to the little cabin and all that shit. And it's holy fucking shit. I cannot fucking believe that it just went down that quickly. Honestly, realistically, nothing should have ever fucking happened. So anyway, there's this slow burn in progress. Once Molly gets captured, and Noah doesn't even know that Molly got captured, right? And all the while, Molly's ex is trying to figure out where the fuck she is, and he's getting worried and all this stuff. And so Noah is starting to try and manipulate Steve, because Steve is there, and he keeps doing stuff with her. It's he's into her or something, you know what I mean? And so she keeps continuing to do what he wants her to do, and she acts like she's really into it. And, that she's doing something, she's not just doing this for funsies, And so I always think of this quote from the Adam West Batman, the 1966 movie. He says to, the Penguin, played by Burgess Meredith, is dressed up as another guy, but it's very obviously the Penguin dressed up as another guy. And, Batman asks him, "What's your game, Penguin?" And I always think of that. Whenever I feel like somebody's up to something, I think, "What's your game, Penguin?" And that's what I'm I'm interested. I'm watching the movie, and I'm I feel like this is not something that this Steve guy would fall for at all. That was my big gripe. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I'll spoil that right now. But I will say that one thing I didn't really care for was Steve seemed like he was pretty gullible. He was a little too willing to believe. And even if he was playing along, it's still he let it get too far. And he let his guard down too much if he knew it was coming. There is a scene where basically, because at some point she has he cuts the meat out of her ass. I don't remember if he put implants in her ass or something, but if you had that happen, it would be painful to fucking sit anywhere. And so anyway, they're dancing together, they're flirting, and then they are gonna have sex. And she, oh man, it is I mean, it makes you cringe every time. I don't care who you are, but one of your fears should definitely be, if you're a guy, she goes to give him a blowjob, and like she kind of flares her teeth just before she does, and she clearly is supposed to have like bitten into his dick. Then she like, makes a break for it, and she ends up like getting the other girls out of there, and but he's still coming, and like her and the other girls keep not fucking killing this guy. You know what I mean? Like, if you would spend, if you're me, you'd spend an hour making sure that dude is dead before you fucking do another damn thing. You don't go fucking running. You don't go trying to figure out how to get home. You fucking make sure that guy is dead and that no one is coming to capture you. I mean, that's what I would say anyway. It gets a little cliched with them running from him in that way. They don't kill him like they should initially, and then they just carry on. But I mean, I really did like what they did with this movie. It had a good vibe to it, where it was like a slow burn type movie where they didn't really reveal what it was all about. It seemed like a lot of the interactions in the movie were really like well written and very well acted. They seem genuine. You know what I mean? It was honestly pretty fucking terrifying to think that this totally could fucking happen to somebody, anybody, especially women. If they could go on a date with this guy and trust him, and he could do this to them. You know what I mean? That's fucking horrifying, and that's a good thing to make a horror movie out of. I think that the two leads of this movie, if their performances weren't so good, if Noah and Steve, if they weren't so good in this movie, it would not be as good of a movie as it is. But if they elevate the movie to a level that I wouldn't otherwise have expected it to get to, just based on what I knew about the movie. The only thing I wish is, like I mentioned, I wish I could have seen nothing about this movie and just watched it without any advanced knowledge of what's going on. Some of the things were a little predictable. Some of the things were a little unrealistic. I don't think that Sebastian Stan's character would have been that naive or that trusting of a girl that had literally nothing to lose. Writer Lauren Kahn, who I mentioned does not have a Wikipedia page, she was a horror fan growing up, but she wanted to write a story that was for both horror fans and non-horror fans, which I think I could see that. Like, I think ultimately you still probably are going to want to be a horror fan to truly enjoy this movie, but I get what she was going for. IMDb trivia. So I always try and find at least one shitty piece of trivia, if there's any. The piece I saw that was the most terrible was, Steve tells Noah that he does not eat animals. He is not lying if he considers humans to be more than animals. That's not trivia. That is not trivia at all. Stop fucking doing this, IMDb users. Please stop. Runtime of the movie was 114 minutes. Budget was somewhere between $15 and $20 million. Worldwide gross, there was no real data on that on Wikipedia, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to dig that far to find that information. And it could be because it's mostly, it's a Hulu, I don't know if it's a Hulu-made movie, but it might have only been on streaming. I don't even know if it got a theatrical release or anything. And so there's just no info on how much money it made. It has an IMDb rating of 6.7, a Rotten Tomato critic score of 81%, Rotten Tomato audience score of 80%. My own personal rating is 4.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, I think this could potentially be one that I would watch around Halloween every year or every other year or something like that, because it's not the same as Christmas for me, where I keep watching the same Christmas movies every year. There are a select few horror movies that I can actually watch that are, ones I want to see every fucking year, So moving on to the movie +1, which was released on June 14th, 2019. It's currently available on the streaming service Hulu. It was directed by Jeff Chan and Andrew Reimer. Neither of them have Wikipedia pages, which is always nifty when I have watched a movie and I try and not like figure out anything about the movie, and I like go to look up a bunch of information to like talk about, and then I find out that there's fucking nothing on any of these people. Those two guys also wrote the movie, so no additional information on other things they wrote. Executive producer Ben Stiller, that's a name. I mean, that's somebody that you know about. And I'm sure that's partially why I actually, you know about this movie, you know what I mean? Like, or like I should say, you can find it, because if you've got Ben Stiller backing it, it's at least got some credibility. The composer of this movie was named Leo Byronberg, and never heard of him. Doesn't have any notable movies. He's I should say he's been on, like he's assisted in other scores, but none that he was the outright composer on. So actually top billed in this movie, which I was really surprised to see because she hasn't been in jack shit else, is Maya Erskine. She is playing the character of Alice. She is not the main character of this movie, this story. She's just not. She's in the Hulu show Pen 15, which if you look at it, looks like penis. Terrific. She's not really in much else at all. But the other, her co-star, who is second billed in this movie, is Jack Quaid, who is the son of actor Dennis Quaid, and also nephew of Randy Quaid by, extended logic. He plays the character Ben. He was in a couple of the Hunger Games movies in a very small role. It was like his first ever role. He's in that show The Boys on Amazon, and I really need to check that show out because I've heard a lot of people say good things about it, and I need to see if it's any good. He was in something called Vinyl, which is, I think, a show on HBO. He was in that Scream 5 movie that's just called Scream because I fucking hate people who decide movie names, especially horror movies. He was also in Logan Lucky, and I don't fucking remember him from that movie at all. He's gonna be in the movie Oppenheimer, which is a Christopher Nolan movie that's coming up, and I'm excited to see that, but I'm apprehensive about getting too excited about it because I was not a big fan of Tenet or Dunkirk. My plot synopsis for this movie is: two unlucky in love friends agree to be each other's dates for a handful of upcoming weddings. Solid, okay? I feel like it's not revealing too much, but it's giving you a little primer. But I mean, honestly, like +1, I mean, aside from like elementary math, you're only really hearing +1 on wedding invitations. So the movie starts off, and like there's something that carries on throughout this movie that I think it's a really awesome idea, which is like, they've got like 10 fucking weddings to go to. The two of these two characters, Alice and Ben, they start off with Ben is going to give a best man speech, and he's explaining, like he's saying what he's going to say to Alice, and they're just friends, right? And so he's explaining to her, what the speech is going to be. And she's like making fun of him and telling him it's fucking terrible. And it sounds pretty fucking terrible. And then they switch over to the actual, where he's giving the speech at the wedding. It's kind of a cool juxtaposition. And he's like finishing it up, and like the little bit that you do hear him say at the speech sounds like it also would have been terrible, but it like goes over really well. So, Alice takes credit for helping write the speech or whatever. And it's just, I can't help but feel like that both speeches would have been terrible, but whatever. Like, as I'm watching the movie, I was thinking, I don't feel like Alice is like a good leading lady, because honestly, I only saw the poster for this movie. It's just first glance, like she seemed normal looking, right? But she's not like terrifically, like not even like really cute, honestly. Like that, and I don't mean to be a dick. I realize I'm not a raving beauty or something, but as far as, leading lady material, same with leading men material, generally they're all nice looking people, and I guess it's kind of nice to get a little change from that, so I'll shut up. But I feel like maybe neither of them were that good looking, but like Ben has the tall guy thing going on where I feel like a lot of people that are into men just seem to think that tall men are just attractive or just more attractive. I don't get it, but I don't have to. He looks like, and this is how I would explain it. He looks like he would play Andrew Garfield's brother, or maybe just like childhood friend or college roommate or something like that. You know, like that's the kind of look he has to me. If you look him up, you know, if you look up Jack Quaid, you might agree with me. I don't know. There's a girl in the first wedding that Ben is trying to hook up with, and she should have been the lead in this movie. Like, as far as like looks are concerned, like she probably could have been considered, but obviously wasn't. You know, he basically finds out that she's engaged. Like, he goes to kiss her, and he hasn't noticed the whole time that she has an engagement ring on, which I get it. Like, I never fucking notice these things, but of course I never get far enough to be like making the move on a kiss that, you know, I would need to worry about it. It's basically just more upsetting after the fact, you know, to figure out that they were already engaged. So I think one of the gripes I would say I have about this movie is, so this Alice character, you know, she's top billed in this movie, right? She starts off the movie being kind of funny, and I assumed she was like a comedian of some sort, you know? I assumed that was just, I had never heard of her and she was just in this movie, but she's not. She's not a comedian. She's just an actress / writer, and she starts off by making all these jokes and being funny, but then, you know, it's like she's broken up with her boyfriend, and she's, you know, getting drunk at this first wedding, and she's just fucking shit-faced and obnoxious, and she's not very likable. You know what I mean? She's not somebody I'm rooting for to have a good time with. I put this like, so she starts crying, and there's a quote from Archer where he says, "No, don't. You're so ugly when you cry." And it honestly fits so fucking well, because my God, not good. I assumed, like, I knew what this movie was going to be. Just based on the title, I was like, okay, +1, these two are going to be friends that, I'll mention now, it's spoiler filled. There's going to be spoilers for this fucking movie. Get the fuck over it. I assumed these two friends were, you know, going to be friends. They were agreeing to be +1s to a bunch of weddings that they had to go to. And then I just knew they were going to end up, you know, together. You know, that's like the only way this movie can go, right? And it seems like such a shitty idea. I mean, unless you legitimately know that you're not into somebody or something like that, I can't imagine agreeing to be in that situation. So basically what I put in an acknowledgement of what this movie was about, I put, be my date. This is what they have to be thinking. Be my date to the weddings that are coming up that we have to go to. Maybe you'll meet someone who thinks you and I are already romantically involved. That's exactly the problem with this fucking movie. Ed Begley Jr. is in this movie. I don't know if you know who he is, but I know him from Arrested Development. And, you know, he plays Stan Sitwell, who has alopecia, and he has, you know, like, he's got to put, like, fake hair on and fake eyebrows and stuff. But he's not bad in this movie as Ben's dad. But what people don't, like, you can just tell when somebody writes a scene at a golf course and they don't play golf and they don't know anything about golf. He says he's going to hit his ball, you know, Ed Begley Jr. is going to hit his ball out of a bunker, and he says beforehand, get ready for the magic, and hits it. And no one fucking does that. I'm sorry, no one hypes themselves up before hitting a golf shot, especially not in that situation. Sorry, does not happen. They don't pull the pin when they're on the putting green. Like, they are clearly like 10 feet from the hole, and they go to putt and they miss, And it's like, yeah, but even if you would have made that, you're supposed to fucking pull the pin, you know? This movie posits a world where this Ben guy has 7 fucking weddings to go to, and Alice has 4. And I was relieved because they did a pretty solid version of, you know, just a brief overview of like each wedding. You know, they didn't dive too deep, you know. On a select few pivotal wedding, you know, opportunities, they went a little more in depth with them, but for the most part, they didn't do too bad. They're riding on this bus and they're singing Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind, but it seems very clear that none of them are actually mouthing the words. Like, none of them are actually saying what the lyrics are to that song. So all I can think is like maybe they did a song and figured out it was wrong, and then they re-recorded it and, you know, like did it in a studio and, you know, transposed that onto the fucking scene in the bus. But anyway, I put at this point in my notes, there is no way Ben and Alice don't end up together. Alice says, this is actually a great idea. And I said, it's really not. The cheaper hotels notion is the most sound, though. Like the fact that they could split hotels if they have mutual weddings, it would be a lot better for them. You know what I mean? They're sleeping. This is before any of the hooking up might happen or whatever. They're sleeping in the same bed, but they're not supposedly romantically interested in each other. And she keeps like suggesting that they cuddle, and she also suggests that cuddling could be precluded from any kind of romanticness, but it's just not true. You cannot do that. You can't put 2 platonic friends together in a bed and they're cuddling and it means nothing. I don't give a shit. I'm not cuddling with anybody that I am not romantically interested in. And I can fucking bet you that, because I'm also not cuddling with people that I am romantically interested in, because, you know, that's just, them's the breaks, you know? That's the way it goes. I mean, I said that if you're in the same bed, if you're going to cuddle, you might as well just fuck. You might as well just have sex. Just fucking do it. Whatever. I didn't even do this on purpose, but after I said all this stuff about them cuddling, I said, there is no way Ben and Alice don't end up together again. I said it again, and I didn't even mean to. I said that she must be a comedian. She is not. Ben knows that Alice is sitting there like with this potential hookup of his, like, you know, like she's sitting in a lounge chair at a pool, and there are these 2 other women, and one of them is pregnant, and the other one seems like a viable candidate for, you know, hooking up with Ben. And Ben is in the pool, and he knows these women are there, and he is like spraying pool water out of his mouth and like kicking his legs up. Like they paint him in the most unattractive light, and this woman is saying that she's like into him and she'd be interested in him. You know, this is what she says to Alice, and it's like, okay, I don't understand that, but all right. I'm glad that they took the time that, you know, all these weddings, there's so many of them, but they're brief. Then they put a little spin, but they keep that same best man or maid of honor speech in each of the wedding scenes, you know? So it's like, it kind of has this connective tissue type thing that I love so much. I said that if she is a comedian in real life, I'm not eager to hear one of her sets, which is, yeah. They go to this hotel, okay? So it's a continuous tour of these weddings. There's very little downtime between the weddings. There's like a couple of scenes here and there, nothing major. They go to one hotel, and the guy behind the counter says to them, your total is $83.53 or whatever he says, plus resort tax. Why would you say the word total if you didn't mean it? You know what I mean? If it's this amount plus tax, then guess what? That's not the total. The total is the total. The total is the amount with tax. I would say in this movie, Ben and Alice's, their chemistry, their dynamic is very good. It actually, like, it does feel like they are friends and that they could be romantically involved with one another. But I said I liked them, and it's really nice that they have that dynamic because they're totally going to end up together. But hey, like, you also get Ben's dad and, his new stepmom are basically talking about how much they love Alice. And I'm like, at this point, I would so much rather it not turn out that they're going to end up together. I just don't fucking want it at all. I can't fucking deal with it. I don't know, that's the way that is. I mean, they're pushing for it so much, but it's like, I really, really wish they could have set it up to not fucking happen at all. The romantic tension is like so high in this movie. It's just, there was no way it wasn't going to lead to it at this point. Like, they keep having scenes where they're just building this tension. So there's a moment where, okay, so like after one of the weddings, they are kind of getting flirty with each other, and they go to this like cemetery, right? And she says something about needing to hold your breath to run through a cemetery because of ghosts or whatever stupid thing she believes. And then when she holds her breath, and she does that thing that people do sometimes when they hold their breath where they like balloon out their cheeks. And I never really understand that. Like, you're really not getting additional air, not enough to say so. They go into the cemetery, and they stumble and fall, and look, they're going to start kissing. Okay, that's kind of nice. Oh, look, they're going to start fucking. Oh, okay. Great. And then they end up staying. They like fall asleep after the sex, because I think they're probably drunk. I can't remember for sure. And when they wake up in the morning, they're still laying in the fucking cemetery. And this groundskeeper walks up to them and just starts saying, "Cooter's out, cooter's out." And lo and behold, they are literally like laying there, and her dress is pulled up, and her vagina is, I mean, you don't see anything, but that's the implication of what he says. So it's like, okay, I guess I mean, I enjoy the fact that Alice is not like a typical female lead. She's not just, but I feel like that's been done to death too. Like the atypical female lead, atypical male lead, whatever. Her parents, Alice's parents, when they meet Ben, the mom is like really aggressive and is like, "What took you so long?" Basically just giving him a bunch of shit. Because at this point, they're like, Alice and Ben are dating. And it's like, would you not be that person that fucking, is giving people a bunch of shit for that? I mean, they don't need to be, you don't need to hassle them about it. They're together now. There's nothing you can do to fix it, The dad even says at some point that, "I'm really glad you came along, Ben. I haven't seen my daughter happy like this in a long time," or something like that. And it's like, yeah, no pressure whatsoever, Ben. So there's a scene, like they've been dating. Everything seems to be going well. Ben's writing this card for the couple at the wedding that they're going to next, and they go to leave, and he asks Alice where the gift is, and she's like, "Oh shit, I forgot it." And they get in this big fight about it, and it's like it's like he has an argument, he has a case against her for why she should have remembered the gift, but at the same time, it's like, fuck, dude, you're not going to do anything about it now, so just get the fuck over it and move on with your life, Because he's like talking about how much classier it is to walk up with a gift in hand and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but in reality, they're not going to fucking open those gifts right away, and you could mail it to them and say, "Hey, sorry, we left it behind, we didn't realize it until it was too late, and we didn't want to miss the wedding." And that would be it. You know what I mean? I mean, it would not be a big deal. The fight, it's so aggressive, like, it's so annoying. And I get that it's supposed to be uncomfortable, like, that's what a fight is like, but I could not fucking stand it. It was not pleasant. It was not, I don't know. One of my biggest gripes with this movie especially is, like, okay, they do the thing, like she was in the beginning, she was pretending, or I should say Alice was drunk. So you've got an actress pretending to be drunk, and she's just being obnoxious, and she's not really acting the way I feel like a lot of drunk people act, but whatever. And then we get this scene with Ben's dad where, his dad took a bunch of acid with all of his friends for like a bachelor party thing because the dad's getting married. And it's like, what are you fucking doing? And like, that's all I could think is like, I hate watching movies where a person is pretending to be on drugs. You know what I mean? I hated it in, I think it was called Long Shot with Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. I fucking hate it. It's like a standby of Seth Rogen movies that he loves to have people who are not traditionally people that would do drugs. He likes to have them do drugs and basically have to act normal while they're really high. And he just thinks that's like the funniest fucking thing in the world. And I don't enjoy it. I don't believe, because this movie suggests that Ben's dad has been married twice before, and this is going to be his third marriage. And they still have like a full-blown ceremony and reception. And I'm like, I don't know many people that are on their third wedding. I don't know many people that are on their second wedding. You know what I mean? Unless one of the two people involved in the wedding has never had a wedding before. That's the only thing I could imagine. But it's just, they suggest that this guy is going to have this fucking expensive ass wedding with a woman that presumably has been married herself before. So it's like, no. I would say, as far as this movie's concerned, the two leads they have great chemistry. It's a big plus. The writing is actually pretty solid. It's a little overdone, but what can you do? It does feel real. I liked the way that they kept changing up how they did the weddings, and it didn't feel like repetitive. It put a pretty decent spin on what most of us has already seen before. The only thing I will say is there are like way too many common comedy movie tropes, like, as I mentioned, actors pretending to be drunk or on drugs. I guess they just, in the end of this movie, they basically just conveniently get back together for the last 5 minutes, like, because they break up, they have this fight, they break up, and all of a sudden things just have to work out, so they just fucking work out. And I don't care for that. I wish it would have like been that it ended up that he learned a lesson, and she could have even ended up like single at the end and still been, learning a lesson herself. That would be much better. This movie had a runtime of 98 minutes. Budget was unknown. Worldwide gross was $44,112, so not super great. IMDb rating was 6.6, and the Rotten Tomato critic score was 88%. The Rotten Tomato audience score was 79%, and my personal rating for this film, 3.5 out of 5 stars. I originally put 4, but as I was talking through all of these issues, I realized that I just didn't like it as much as I thought I originally did. So there's that. It's not a bad one. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it, but I would say you won't like hate yourself for checking it out. That's all I got for today. I guess, send me your suggestions. Don't be a stranger. Don't worry. If you suggest something, I might not do it, but I might also possibly do it. So I hope you send some ideas my way and I can use them. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Brandon at Random Reviews is performed, written, directed, produced, and edited by Brandon Griffiths. Theme music is performed by Augusto Diniz from Fiverr.